The starship Endurance came out of faster-than-light travel with a flash of blue light. Captain Jake Morrison stood at the front window of the bridge and looked at what lay before him. Nexus Prime, the capital station of the Galactic Concord. It was the largest thing any human had ever seen built by living creatures. The station was shaped like a ring, but it was so big that entire moons could fit inside it. Lights covered every part of its surface. Ships moved around it like insects around a hive. There were thousands of them, maybe millions. Each one came from a different world, a different species, a different corner of a galaxy that humans were only now beginning to explore. Jake took a deep breath. His heart was beating fast, but he kept his face calm. He was the captain. He had to look strong for his crew. Dr. Katie Lawson stood beside him. She was the ship's xenobiologist, which meant she studied alien life. She had spent 20 years preparing for this moment. Her eyes were wide as she looked at the station. "It's real," she said quietly. "It's actually real." Commander Marcus Cole stood on Jake's other side. He was in charge of security. He was a tall man with a hard face and careful eyes. He did not look impressed. He looked worried. "That's a lot of ships," Marcus said. "A lot of species. And we're walking in there alone." Jake nodded. "That's the job. Earth is counting on us." The Endurance moved slowly toward the station. A voice came through the communication system. It spoke in a language that sounded like music, but the ship's computer translated it instantly. "Human vessel, you are cleared to dock at port 712. Welcome to Nexus Prime. The Council is waiting for you." Jake looked at his crew. 50 men and women, the best Earth had to offer. Scientists, soldiers, diplomats, engineers. They had trained for years for this mission. They had crossed the stars to get here. And now everything depended on what happened next. "Let's go make history," Jake said. The docking process took an hour. When the Endurance finally connected to the station, a team of alien guards was waiting for them. They were tall creatures with gray skin and 4 arms. Their faces had no expression that Jake could read. The guards led the human delegation through long hallways filled with strange lights and stranger smells. Katie recorded everything with a small device on her wrist. Marcus kept his hand near his weapon, even though weapons were not allowed in the council chamber. Finally, they reached a massive door. It was made of some kind of metal that Jake did not recognize. The door opened slowly, and beyond it was the council chamber of the Galactic Concord. Jake had seen pictures during his training. Nothing had prepared him for the real thing. The chamber was enormous. It stretched upward so far that he could not see the ceiling. Floating platforms filled the air, each one holding representatives from a different species. There were creatures of every shape and size. Some had wings. Some had tentacles. Some looked like nothing Jake had ever imagined, and all of them were looking at the humans. The guards led them to a platform in the center of the chamber. It rose slowly into the air until they were level with the highest council members. A creature made of pale light floated before them. It had no solid form, just a shifting shape that hurt Jake's eyes if he looked too long. "I am High Arbiter Velox of the Thasani people," the creature said. "I speak for the council. You are the humans of Earth?" Jake stepped forward. "I am Captain Jake Morrison. I speak for the United Earth Council and all the people of our world. We come in peace. We seek friendship and membership in the Galactic Concord." Velox made a sound that the translator turned into something like laughter, but colder. "Peace," Velox repeated. "Yes, we have studied your world and your species. We know what you are." A screen appeared in the air beside Velox. It showed images of Earth, blue oceans, green forests, storms and volcanoes and earthquakes. Then it showed images of humans, running, fighting, hunting, Building. Your world is classified as a Class 7 death world, Velox said. This is the highest danger rating in our system. Your gravity is crushing. Your atmosphere is filled with a corrosive gas you call oxygen. Your weather is violent and unpredictable. Your planet is covered with predators, and your microscopic life forms are deadly to nearly every species in the Concord. Jake felt his stomach tighten. He had expected some concerns. He had not expected this. Velox continued. And you yourselves are perhaps the most dangerous of all. You are persistence predators. You chase your prey until it collapses from exhaustion. You can survive wounds that would kill any civilized species. You form pack bonds so strong that you will die for creatures that are not even your own kind. You feel pain, but you ignore it. You break, but you keep moving. Katie stepped forward. Those are survival traits. They helped us evolve on a difficult world. They don't make us dangerous to others. Every Death World species believes that, Velox said. History tells a different story. Your kind cannot be controlled. You cannot be predicted. You form attachments too quickly and break them too easily. You fight among yourselves constantly, yet you unite against outside threats with frightening speed. Marcus spoke now, his voice tight with anger. We came here offering friendship. We crossed the stars to shake hands with the galaxy. And the galaxy has considered your offer, Velox said. The lights in the chamber changed. Every platform began to glow either red or green. Jake watched as the votes appeared. Red, red, more red than he could count. A few scattered greens, but not nearly enough. The vote is complete, Velox announced. By a count of 394 to 18, the Galactic Concord has rejected humanity's application for membership. You are not welcome here. You will never be welcome here. Deathworlders cannot be trusted among civilized peoples. Jake stood frozen. Around him, he heard gasps from his crew. Katie looked like she might cry. Marcus looked like he might fight. You may return to your ship, Velox said. You may return to your world. And you may stay there. If any human vessel enters Concord space again without permission, it will be destroyed. This session is ended. The platform began to lower. Jake watched the council members above him, all those alien faces looking down with fear and disgust. He had come to offer peace. He was leaving with nothing. The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks. Jake spent most of it alone in his quarters, staring at the wall. When the Endurance finally entered orbit around Earth, he felt nothing but shame. The United Earth Council met in emergency session. Jake stood before them and delivered his report. He told them everything. The classification, the vote, the fear in those alien eyes. When he finished, the room was silent. Admiral Samantha Gray was the first to speak. She was 82 years old, the most decorated officer in Earth's history. She had fought in 3 wars and built a fleet that sent humans to the stars. Her voice was calm and steady. So they think we're monsters, she said. Yes, Admiral, Jake replied. They think we're too dangerous to trust. Yes, Admiral. Admiral Gray stood up slowly. She looked around the room at the faces of Earth's leaders. Presidents and generals, scientists and diplomats. All of them looked defeated. Then we show them what monsters can do, Admiral Gray said. Not with war. Not with threats. We show them what happens when the most dangerous species in the galaxy decides to help instead of hurt. If they won't accept us as guests, we will make ourselves necessary. We will make them need us. She turned to Jake. Captain Morrison, you're being promoted. You will command our new fleet, and you will take us back to the stars. Jake straightened his back. The shame in his chest began to change into something else. Something harder. Something that felt like purpose. What's the mission, Admiral? He asked. Admiral Gray smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of someone who had been underestimated her entire life. "The mission is simple," she said. "We came unprepared the first time. We won't make that mistake again. The Deathworlders are going to show the galaxy what we're really made of." And somewhere in the cold depths of space, the future began to change. 3 years passed. 3 years of work that never stopped. 3 years of building something the galaxy had never seen before. Admiral Samantha Gray called it Project Threshold. It was the largest effort in human history. Every nation on Earth contributed. Factories ran day and night. Scientists worked until they collapsed. Soldiers trained until their bodies broke. Reviewer for soldiers trained until their bodies broke. And then they trained some more. Jake Morrison, now a fleet admiral himself, oversaw the military side of the operation. He had changed in those 3 years. The young captain who had been humiliated at Nexus Prime was gone. In his place stood a harder man with gray in his hair and fire in his eyes. He stood in a command center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, watching screens that showed activity across the planet. Training camps in the deserts of Africa. Ship construction in the orbital yards above Asia. Research labs in the frozen reaches of Antarctica. All of it connected. All of it building towards something. Dr. Katie Lawson ran the scientific division. She had studied every piece of information about galactic species that humanity had collected. She knew their biology, their fears, their weaknesses. More importantly, she knew what they needed. Most Concord species evolved on what they call garden worlds. Katie explained during one of the weekly briefings. Low gravity, stable climates, gentle environments. They never had to fight to survive. Their bodies are fragile. A fall that would bruise a human would break their bones. Temperatures that we find comfortable can kill them. Bacteria that live harmlessly in our bodies would tear through their populations like wildfire. She put up images on the screen. Aliens in environmental suits. Aliens in temperature-controlled rooms. Aliens surrounded by medical equipment, just to survive conditions that humans found normal. They're afraid of us because we're strong, Katie said. But that strength is exactly what they need. There are places in the galaxy where no Concord species can go. Planets they've abandoned. Stations they've left to die. We can go there. We can do things they cannot. Commander Marcus Cole built the Vanguard Corps. He selected volunteers from every military on Earth, but he did not choose the strongest or the fastest. He chose the ones who would not give up. I don't care if you can run a mile in 4 minutes, Marcus told his recruits during their first training session. I care if you can run a mile with 2 broken legs. I don't care if you can lift 500 pounds. I care if you can carry a child through a burning building after you've been awake for 3 days. The training was brutal. They practiced rescue operations in active volcanoes, where the heat turned their suits into ovens. They practiced underwater in the deepest trenches, where the pressure crushed equipment and the cold seeped into their bones. They practiced in the irradiated zones left over from the old wars, where every breath brought poison into their lungs. Many quit. Some died. The ones who remained became something new. They were not soldiers. They were not rescue workers. They were something in between, something the galaxy had never seen. Marcus also made them learn. Every Vanguard member had to speak at least 3 Concord languages. They had to understand alien medicine, alien psychology, alien culture. If they were going to save lives, they had to understand the lives they were saving. Engineer Danny Reyes led the shipbuilding program. He was a quiet man with scarred hands and an engineer's love for solving impossible problems. His job was to build ships that could go where Concord vessels could not. Their ships are beautiful, Danny told his team. Light and elegant and efficient. They're designed for garden worlds and stable environments. They fall apart in real conditions. He put up the designs for the Titan-class vessels. They were massive, ugly ships built like fortresses. Thick hulls that could survive impacts. Reinforced structures that could handle 10 times Earth's gravity. Engines that would keep running even when half the ship was destroyed. "We're not building racing ships," Danny said. "We're building rescue ships. They need to take a beating and keep flying. They need to carry supplies and equipment for any situation. Medical bays, terraforming gear, construction materials. Whatever someone might need, we bring it." The first Titan-class ship launched after 18 months. It was called the Resolve. Jake stood at the ceremony and watched it rise into the sky. It was not graceful. It was not elegant. But it was strong. It was human. More ships followed. The determination. The perseverance. The endurance, too, named after Jake's original command. By the end of the third year, humanity had 12 of them. 12 Titan-class vessels. Each one crewed by volunteers who understood what they were signing up for. They called themselves the Endurance Armada. Admiral Gray gathered the command staff for a final briefing before launch. Jake was there, along with Katie, Marcus, and Danny. They stood in a room overlooking Earth, the blue planet hanging in the darkness like a jewel. "We've spent 3 years getting ready," Admiral Gray said. "Now it's time to see if it was enough." She pulled up intelligence reports. "Our contacts in the Concord have been feeding us information. There's a radiation storm moving toward the outer rim territories. It's massive. The Concord has already declared the region a quarantine zone. They're pulling out all their ships and abandoning everyone who can't evacuate in time." "How many people are trapped?" Katie asked. 3 million. Most of them are the Sani, the same species that voted against us. The same species whose leader called us monsters." The room was quiet. Jake felt something moving in his chest. It might have been anger. It might have been something else. "The Concord won't save them?" Marcus asked. "They can't," Admiral Gray said. "Their ships can't survive the radiation. Their people can't work in those conditions. By the time the storm passes, everyone on those worlds will be dead." "But we can survive it," Danny said slowly. "The Titan ships have radiation shielding. Our suits can handle the exposure." "For how long?" Katie asked. "Long enough," Danny replied. Admiral Gray looked at each of them in turn. "I'm not going to order anyone to do this. We would be entering Concord space without permission. If something goes wrong, Earth might face consequences. And the people we're trying to save might not even want our help." Jake stepped forward. "They rejected us because they thought we were dangerous." They were right. But dangerous doesn't mean evil. It means we can do things they can't. And if we can save 3 million people who would otherwise die, that's exactly what we should do. He looked at his old crew. Katie, Marcus, Danny. They all nodded. "The Endurance Armada launches in 12 hours, Jake said. "Tell the crews. Anyone who doesn't want to go can stay behind with no questions asked." No one stayed behind. 12 hours later, the Armada broke orbit. 12 massive ships heading into the dark. Behind them, Earth grew smaller and smaller until it was just another point of light in the sky. Aboard the Resolve, Jake stood on the bridge and watched the stars stream past. Beside him, Katie was reviewing medical protocols. Marcus was checking equipment lists. Danny was monitoring the ship's systems. They were going back to the place that had rejected them. They were going to save people who feared them. And they were going to do it without asking for permission or forgiveness. Entering Concord space in 6 hours, the navigation officer reported. Jake nodded. "All hands, this is the Admiral. In 6 hours, we crossed the border." There's no turning back after that. We're going to show the galaxy what Deathworlders really are. Not monsters, not threats, but the people who show up when no one else will. The people who run toward danger instead of away from it. He paused, feeling the weight of the moment. They said we weren't welcome. They said we weren't civilized. They said we were too dangerous to trust. Maybe they were right about some of it, but they were wrong about what that means. Because dangerous means we can survive what they can't. Dangerous means we can fight when they have to run. Dangerous means that when 3 million people are dying and no one else can help, we can. He took a breath. We're going to save those people. Not because they deserve it. Not because they asked for it. But because we can. Because that's what humans do. We protect each other. And today, everyone in this galaxy is one of us. The ships flew on through the darkness, carrying hope toward a dying world. 3 years of preparation done now, it was time to see if it was enough. Velith 4 was dying. From orbit, Jake could see the radiation storm sweeping across the planet's surface. It looked like a wall of green fire, kilometers high, moving slowly but unstoppably across the land. Behind it, everything was dead. In front of it, 3 million Dasani waited to die. The Dasani were a delicate species. They had evolved on a world of gentle winds and soft light. Their bodies were made of something like living glass, beautiful and fragile. They could not survive what was coming. No Concord species could. Shield generators are failing across the northern continent, Katie reported from her station. The main cities have maybe 48 hours before the storm reaches them. After that, nothing survives. Jake studied the tactical display. 12 human ships against a planetary disaster. It should have been impossible. But humans had been doing impossible things for a very long time. All ships, begin deployment, he ordered. Group Alpha, focus on evacuation. Group Beta, establish medical stations. Group Gamma, I need those shield generators reinforced. The Endurance Armada split apart, each ship moving to its assigned position. Shuttles launched by the dozens, carrying Vanguard teams to the surface. Marcus led the first ground team into the radiation zone. The moment his shuttle touched down, his suit's alarms began screaming. Radiation levels that would kill a normal human in hours. Heat that would cook unprotected flesh. Air filled with particles that burned the lungs. The Dasani rescue workers, who had tried to help their own people, were already dead. Their glass-like bodies shattered by the harsh conditions. Marcus stepped over their remains and kept moving. Team 1, we've got survivors in the underground shelters, he reported. Moving to extract. The shelters were designed to protect the Dasani from minor storms. They were never meant to handle something like this. The walls were cracking. The air filters were failing. Inside, thousands of Dasani huddled together, waiting for death dawn. When Marcus and his team broke through the entrance, the Dasani screamed. They saw the human shapes in their heavy armor and thought more monsters had come to hurt them. We're here to help, Marcus said, his voice calm and steady. My name is Marcus Cole. I'm a human. We've come to get you out. An old Dasani, his body clouded with age, floated forward. The Concord abandoned us. Why would the Deathworlders save us? Because someone has to, Marcus said. Now please, we don't have much time. Everyone who can move, follow us. Everyone who can't will carry you. The evacuation began. Vanguard soldiers carried Dasani children in their arms, shielding them with their own bodies from the radiation. They loaded survivors onto shuttles and flew them to the ships above, then turned around and went back for more. It was brutal work. The radiation ate through their suits. The heat made every breath feel like fire. 3 soldiers collapsed on the first day. They were dragged to safety by their teammates. and fresh volunteers took their places. Katie set up her medical station in a valley that was, for the moment, protected from the worst of the storm. The Zani doctors had come to help their own people, but they were dying. Their fragile bodies could not handle the conditions. "Get them inside," Katie ordered her team. "Full environmental suits for the alien medics. We need every doctor we can get." She worked for 30 hours straight, treating patients who looked at her with terror in their eyes. The Zani children cried when she approached them. Adults flinched away from her touch. They had been taught their whole lives that humans were monsters. Katie ignored their fear. She focused on her work. She stitched wounds, administered medicine, and fought death one patient at a time. A Vasani mother brought her dying child to Katie's station. The little one's body was cracked and dark, damaged by radiation exposure that should have been fatal. "Please," the mother begged. "Please, I know what you are. I know what they say about your kind. But she's my daughter. Please." Katie took the child in her arms. She was so light, like holding a glass sculpture. So fragile. So easy to break. "I need a level 4 treatment kit," Katie called. "And someone get me a radiation filter now." She worked on the child for 6 hours. Her hands never shook. Her focus never wavered. When it was over, the little one's eyes opened, clear and bright. "Mama?" the child said. The mother collapsed in relief, her glass-like body chiming against the floor. She looked up at Katie with an expression no human had ever seen from a Dasani before. Gratitude. "Thank you," the mother whispered. "Thank you, Deathworlder." Danny Reyes led the engineering teams. His job was to repair the shield generators that protected the main cities. Without them, the radiation would kill everyone too sick or weak to evacuate. The generators were massive machines, each one the size of a building. They had been designed by Concord engineers for normal conditions. They were never meant to survive what was happening now. Danny found the first generator halfway destroyed. Its power core was failing. Its circuits were melting. By any reasonable standard, it was beyond repair. Danny did not believe in reasonable standards. He worked in conditions that should have killed him. The radiation levels were so high that his suit's outer layer was burning away even as he worked. The heat made his tools almost too hot to hold. His vision blurred. His hands cramped. He kept working. When a power surge destroyed part of the generator's control system, Danny reached in with his bare hands to reconnect the circuits. The energy burned his fingers. He felt 2 of them go dead as the nerves were destroyed. He kept working. "Generator 1 is online," he reported 12 hours later. Moving to Generator 2. By the end of the first day, the humans had evacuated 50,000 people. They had treated 20,000 more. They had repaired 3 shield generators. It was not enough. Jake stood on the bridge of the Resolve, watching the numbers. 3 million people. 48 hours. Not enough ships. Not enough time. Not enough of anything. But they kept working. The second day was worse. The radiation storm was closer now. More soldiers collapsed. More equipment failed. More people died. But more people lived. Katie performed surgery on 12 Dasani in 1 hour, saving 11 of them. Marcus carried 7 children through a collapsing tunnel, getting them to safety seconds before the whole thing came down. Danny rebuilt an entire power distribution system using parts from 3 different wrecked machines. On the 3rd day, the first Concord relief ships appeared on the edge of the system. They stopped at the quarantine boundary. Their captain sent messages saying they were ready to help if conditions improved. They did not cross the line. Jake received their messages and did not respond. He was too busy coordinating the evacuation of a city that was minutes from being destroyed. The storm hit the southern continent on day 4. The shield generators there failed. But by then, Most of the population had been evacuated to the ships above. The Titan-class vessels were packed with refugees, the Sani bodies filling every available space. The life support systems strained under the load. No one complained. No one asked the aliens to leave. On day 6, the Concorde relief fleet finally crossed the quarantine line. The storm had passed. The radiation was fading. It was safe now. They found the human ships orbiting a planet that should have been a graveyard. They found 3 million Thasani still alive. The final death toll was 37,000. It should have been 3 million. High Arbiter Velox watched the reports from his chambers on Nexus Prime. He saw footage of human soldiers carrying the Sani children. He saw recordings of human doctors saving the Sani lives. He saw the testimony of survivors who wept as they described the Deathworlders who had come for them when no one else would. For the first time in his long life, Velox did not know what to think. He had voted against the humans. He had called them dangerous. He had said they could never be trusted, and they had just proven him wrong in the most powerful way possible. On the surface of Velith 4, a Thasani woman found Marcus as he was loading the last shuttle. She was the mother whose child Katie had saved. Why? She asked him. We rejected you. We called you monsters. We left you to rot on your death world. Why did you come for us? Marcus looked at her for a long moment. Then he smiled, even though she could not see it behind his helmet. Because you needed help, he said, and we were able to give it. That's enough reason for us. He turned and walked toward his shuttle. Behind him, the Zasani woman stood in the ruins of her world, watching the monsters leave. She never called them that again. The news spread across the galaxy like fire. On 1,000 worlds, beings of every shape and size watched the footage from Velith 4. They saw humans walking through radiation that would have killed any Concorde species in minutes. They saw human doctors saving children with their bare hands. They saw human soldiers carrying the wounded through conditions that no civilized being could survive. The reaction was not what High Arbiter Velox had expected. On Thesan Prime, the homeworld of his own species, crowds gathered in the public squares. They did not chant against the Deathworlders. They chanted for them. They demanded that their government thank the humans who had saved their brothers and sisters on Veleth-4. On Morvath, a small world near the Outer Rim. The leaders issued a formal statement. 2 years earlier, human volunteers had rescued 3 Morvathi colony ships that had been stranded in dangerous space. The Concorde had written them off as lost. The humans had brought them home. Now the Morvathi were calling for humanity to be given membership in the Concorde. One by one, the smaller species began to speak up. They were tired of being abandoned by a council that only protected the powerful. They were tired of watching their people die while the great species debated and delayed. The humans had come when no one else would. That meant something. Velox called an emergency session of the council. He needed to control this situation before it got worse. Ambassador Lisa Tanner arrived at Nexus Prime to face the tribunal. She was a small woman with short gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She had been a diplomat for 40 years. She had negotiated with terrorists and dictators. She was not afraid of aliens. The council chamber was full when she entered. Every species in the Concorde had sent representatives. The floating platforms were packed. The air hummed with 1,000 different languages, all translated into the common tongue by machines built long before humans had learned to use fire. Velox floated at the center of the chamber, his form of shifting light pulsing with barely contained anger. Ambassador Tanner, he began, your species has violated Concorde space. You have entered a quarantine zone without permission. You have interfered with Concorde affairs. How do you answer these charges? Lisa stood straight on her platform. She did not flinch. She did not apologize. I answer with a question, she said. Would this council have preferred that 3 million Thesani died? The chamber went silent. Velox's light flickered. That is not the point. The point is that you broke our laws. Your law said that no one could enter the quarantine zone, Lisa replied. Your laws condemned 3 million people to death. We did not break your laws because we wanted to cause trouble. We broke them because following them would have been murder. A murmur ran through the chamber. On many platforms, representatives were nodding. You had no right, Velox insisted. You were told to stay away from Concord space. You were rejected by this council. We were rejected because you called us dangerous, Lisa said. And we are. We're dangerous to radiation. We're dangerous to extreme heat. We're dangerous to conditions that would kill anyone else. That's what Deathworlders are. And that danger saved 3 million lives. The Dasani delegate rose from her platform. She was old, her glass-like body clouded with age, but her voice was clear. I was born on Veloth 4, she said. My family still lives there. My grandchildren still live there. They are alive because of the humans, because of the Deathworlders. I withdraw my species' objection to their membership. Another delegate rose. Then another. The Morvathi, the Kelix, the Frontier Coalition. Species that have been ignored and abandoned by the Council for generations. Species that had seen what the humans could do. Velox watched his coalition crumbling. He had built his power on fear of the Deathworlders. Now that fear was being replaced by something else. This is not a vote, he announced, his light flashing bright. The humans have not earned the right to a vote. They have merely performed a single act of charity, probably to manipulate our emotions and gain our trust. Then let them earn it. Voice called out. The speaker was a small creature from a species called the Vix. They were known for being quiet and cautious. But this one spoke with fire in his voice. The old laws say that any species seeking membership can be given a trial of contribution, the Vix continued. A test of their value to the Concord. Let the humans face this trial. Let them prove themselves beyond any doubt. Velox paused. The trial of contribution was ancient. It had not been used in thousands of years. But it was still law, and he could choose the trial. Very well, Velox said slowly. The humans may face the trial of contribution. If they succeed, they will be granted full membership in the Galactic Concord. If they fail, they will be banned from our space forever. Lisa nodded. We accept. You have not heard the trial yet, Velox said. There was something like satisfaction in his shifting form. The trial I choose is this, the stabilization of Kethros 9. The chamber erupted in noise. Delegates shouted in protest. Some laughed bitterly. Others simply stared in disbelief. Lisa did not react. She waited until the noise died down, then spoke calmly. Tell me about Kethros 9. Velox's light pulsed with something like triumph. Kethros 9 is a dying world. 50 years ago, its planetary core began to destabilize. Earthquakes and volcanic eruptions have destroyed 90% of its surface. The native Kethrani, a peaceful species of burrowing creatures, have been reduced to a few thousand survivors living in collapsing tunnels. He paused, letting the information sink in. The Concord abandoned Kethros 9 decades ago. Every attempt to stabilize the planet has failed. Every species that has tried has lost ships and lives. It is a death world now, in the truest sense. If you want to prove yourselves, go there. Save it. Stabilize the core. Rescue the survivors. He leaned forward, his light dimming to something cold and hard. Or admit that you cannot. Admit that even Deathworlders have limits. And go back to your little blue planet and stay there forever. Lisa stood in silence for a long moment. Every eye in the chamber was on her. Every species was waiting to see what she would do. She smiled. "We accept," she said again. "The Endurance Armada will depart for Kethros 9 within the week. We will stabilize the planet. We will save the Kethrani. And when we are done, we will return here to claim our place among you." Velox made a sound that might have been laughter. "May have said such things. None have succeeded." "None of them were us," Lisa replied. She turned and walked off the platform, her footsteps echoing in the massive chamber. Behind her, the delegates began to talk and argue and debate. But Lisa did not look back. She had a message to send. 2 days later, Jake Morrison received the news aboard the Resolve. He read the briefing 3 times, making sure he understood. Kethros 9, a dying planet. An impossible mission. He gathered his command staff in the war room. Katie, Marcus, Danny, and a dozen other officers who had proven themselves on Velith 4. "This is a trap," Marcus said bluntly. "Velox chose the one thing he thinks we can't do. He's setting us up to fail." "Probably," Jake agreed. "But it doesn't matter. We have to succeed anyway." Danny studied the technical data on Kethros 9. The core instability is extreme. We'd need to deploy stabilizers at precise points around the planet's mantle. That means teams working in active volcanic zones, in constant earthquake conditions. The mortality rate for something like this would be... He trailed off. "High," Katie finished. "Very high." Jake looked at his officers. These were the people who had followed him into impossible situations before. They had never failed him. But this was different. This was not a rescue mission. This was a full planetary operation. "I'm not going to order anyone to do this," Jake said. "Volunteers only. Everyone needs to understand what they're signing up for." He paused. "But I'm going. Velox thinks we can't do this. He thinks Deathworlders have limits. Maybe we do, but we haven't found them yet. And I'm not going to let some glowing gas ball tell me what humans can and cannot do." Marcus grinned. It was not a nice grin. "Well, when you put it that way, I'm in," Katie said. "Me too," Danny added. "Someone has to keep those stabilizers running." Jake nodded. "Then let's go show the galaxy what we're made of." The Endurance Armada began preparing for its final mission. The mission that would decide humanity's future among the stars. They had been rejected. They had been called monsters. They had been given an impossible task designed to break them. They came prepared anyway. Kethros 9 was worse than the reports had said. Jake stood on the bridge of the Resolve and watched the planet turn below him. Even from orbit, he could see the destruction. Massive cracks spread across the surface like wounds. Volcanoes erupted every few minutes, sending plumes of ash and fire into the sky. The ground itself seemed to shake, mountains crumbling and reforming in constant chaos. Down there, somewhere in that nightmare, a few thousand Kethrani were still alive. They had been abandoned by the galaxy. They had been written off as dead. They were about to meet the Deathworlders. "All ships, begin deployment," Jake ordered. "This is going to be the hardest thing we've ever done. But we've done hard things before. Let's get to work." The Armada spread out around the planet. Shuttles launched by the hundreds, carrying equipment and personnel to the surface. The Titan-class ships positioned themselves to provide orbital support, their shields ready to protect the teams. Below from debris and radiation, Marcus led the first ground team into the Kethrani tunnels. The underground passages were ancient, carved by generations of burrowing creatures who had lived their whole lives in the dark. Now those tunnels were collapsing, filling with toxic gases and scalding steam. The Kethrani who remained were small creatures, no bigger than human children. They had soft fur and large, dark eyes. They moved on 4 legs and communicated through a series of clicks and whistles that the translators struggled to process. When Marcus and his team broke through into the main shelter. The Kethrani screamed and fled deeper into the tunnels. "Please," Marcus called after them. "We're here to help. We're from Earth. We've come to save your world." An old Kethrani emerged from the shadows. She was larger than the others, her fur gray with age. She looked at Marcus with eyes that had seen too much suffering. "The Sky People came before," she said, her voice barely reaching the translator's sensors. "They said they would help. They left us to die." "We're not the Sky People," Marcus said. "We're something different. We're the ones who don't give up." He knelt down so he was closer to her level. Behind him, his team waited in patient silence. "I know you have no reason to trust us," Marcus continued. "I know you've been betrayed before. But we came all this way to help you. We crossed the stars. We fought through space controlled by people who don't want us here. We did all that because your world is dying, and we believe we can save it." He held out his hand. "Will you let us try?" The old Kethrani studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she reached out and touched his gloved fingers with her small paw. "Try," she said. "We have nothing left to lose." Katie established medical stations throughout the tunnel network. The Kethrani were in bad shape. Generations of living in a collapsing world had left them sick and weak. Their immune systems were failing. Their bones were brittle. Many of the children had never seen sunlight. She worked tirelessly, moving from patient to patient, learning Kethrani biology as she went. Their bodies were different from anything she had studied, but medicine was medicine. Pain was pain. Fear was fear. A young Kethrani mother brought her baby to Katie's station. The infant was barely breathing, its small body limp and gray. "Please," the mother begged. "Please, my child." Katie took the baby in her arms. It weighed almost nothing. She could feel its tiny heart struggling to beat. She worked for 3 hours. She used every technique she knew and invented several new ones. She refused to stop even when her hands cramped and her vision blurred. The baby lived. When she handed the infant back to its mother, the Kethrani woman looked at her with something that might have been worship. "Deathworlder," the mother whispered. "Life-giver." Danny Reyes led the engineering cores in the most dangerous mission of all. The core stabilizers were massive devices that had to be planted at 12 precise points around the planet's mantle. Each one required a team to carry it through volcanic zones, earthquake conditions, and collapsing terrain. The first stabilizer was planted on day 3. It cost 2 lives. Danny gave brief services for the fallen, then went back to work. There was no time for grief. Grief could come later. By day 10, 6 stabilizers were in place. 4 more engineers had died. Dozens more were injured. The conditions were getting worse as the core continued to destabilize. "We're running out of time," Danny reported to Jake. "Every day we delay, the planet gets more unstable. If we don't get all 12 stabilizers in place within the next 30 days, there won't be a planet left to save." Jake studied the tactical display. His people were exhausted. His ships were damaged. His supplies were running low. "Then we move faster," he said. "Whatever it takes." They moved faster. Teams worked in shifts that should have been impossible, resting for only a few hours before going back into the fire. They carried stabilizers through rivers of lava. They climbed mountains that were actively crumbling. They breathed air thick with ash and poison. On day 20, Stabilizer 11 was planted. Danny personally led the team that carried it. Even though his hands were still healing from the burns, he had received a Veleth-4.1 more. The last stabilizer had to be placed at the deepest point of the planet's crust. It was a cave system that dropped down almost to the mantle itself. The temperature was so high that conventional suits would melt. The pressure was so intense that even the heavy-duty equipment was being crushed. Danny volunteered to lead the team. Jake tried to talk him out of it. "You've done enough," Jake said. "Let someone else take this one." Danny shook his head. "I built these stabilizers. I know them better than anyone. If something goes wrong down there, I'm the only one who can fix it." Jake looked at his old friend. They had known each other for 15 years. They had been through more together than most people experienced in a lifetime. "Come back," Jake said. "I'll try," Danny replied. He led his team into the depths of Kethros 9. The heat built with every meter they descended. The suit's cooling systems worked at maximum, but it was not enough. Danny felt like he was being cooked from the inside. 3 hours into the descent, the tunnel collapsed behind them. The team was trapped. Danny did not panic. He studied the situation, calculated the options, and made a decision. "Keep going," he told his team. "We plant this stabilizer and figure out how to get back later." They kept going. The final placement site was a cavern at the very edge of the mantle. The rock walls glowed red with heat. The air shimmered. Danny's suit was screaming warnings. Every system pushed beyond its limits. He lifted the stabilizer into position. His muscles burned. His lungs burned. Everything burned. "Activating stabilizer 12, he reported. "In 3, 2, 1. He pressed the button. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the ground began to shake. Not the chaotic shaking of a dying planet, but something different. Something rhythmic. Something controlled. The stabilizers were synchronizing all across Kethros 9. The earthquakes began to slow. The volcanic eruptions became less frequent. The endless shaking that had plagued the planet for 50 years was finally, gradually, stopping. Danny watched the readings on his suit's display. The core was stabilizing. The mission was a success. He slumped against the cavern wall, too exhausted to move. "Danny?" Jake's voice came through the communicator, thick with static. "Danny, do you copy? What's your status?" Danny looked up at the glowing rocks above him. He thought about his team, trapped in the depths with no clear way out. He thought about his family back on Earth. He thought about all the things he had built and all the things he had never gotten to build. "Mission accomplished," he said. "Core is stable. Now get us out of here." It took 12 hours to dig them out. The rescue teams had to cut through collapsed rock and navigate around unstable passages. 2 more lives were lost in the effort, but they reached Danny's team. They brought them to the surface. They brought them home. On day 42, Jake stood on the surface of Kethros 9 and watched the sunrise. It was the first sunrise the planet had seen in decades that was not hidden behind clouds of ash. The Kethrani emerged from their tunnels, blinking in the unfamiliar light. They looked up at the clear sky and began to cry. The old Kethrani, the one who had first trusted Marcus, found Jake standing on a cliff overlooking the healing world. "You did it," she said. "You saved us." Jake shook his head. "We did it together. Your people showed us where to place the stabilizers. Your engineers helped us understand your planet. We couldn't have done it without you." The old Kethrani looked at him with ancient eyes. "The sky people called us worthless. They said our world was not worth saving. You came anyway. Why?" Jake thought about the question. He thought about Earth and the long history of human cruelty and human kindness. He thought about all the wars and all the rescues. He thought about what it meant to be a Deathworlder. "Because we've been the ones who needed help," he said. "We've been the ones everyone else gave up on. We know what it's like to be alone and afraid and dying. And we decided a long time ago that we wouldn't let anyone else feel that way if we could stop it." He looked out at the Kethrani children playing in the sunlight. "That's what Deathworlders do. We protect each other. All of us. Every species. Every world. We're all in this together." High Arbiter Velox arrived at Kethros 9 3 days later. He came aboard a small diplomatic vessel, alone, Without the usual guards and attendants, he walked through the Kathrani settlements, seeing the wreck.